Ladies, are you ready for some real talk? The Achievers Unfiltered podcast isn't a bunch of fluffy stuff about career fashion or networking do's and don'ts. It's real heart-to-heart conversations with inspiring leaders. It's from women, by women, and for women. Tune in for a panel discussion on today's hottest topics that women face every day. We'll also discuss things that rarely enter the conversation. Subscribe to the Achievers Unfiltered podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you like to watch or listen. All right. Hello, everybody. And we are here at Second Soul Studios, and this is Achievers Unfiltered. I'm your host, Kelly Jordan, and I would love to have you all introduce yourselves.
I'm Joy Hemleski. I run Joylon Photography. I've been a photographer for going on 10 years now. I do weddings, events, portraits, branding, and I even have a drone. I have a second branch of my company that I do drone photography work as well.
That's great.
I'm LaFern Kit Beatty, and I call myself the secret sauce for brilliant leaders. I have the exceptional experience of being able to work with leaders and organizations around the globe, help them become more effective, unapologetically excellent, and deliver the results they promise to their employees and their customers.
Oh, I love that. Unapologetically excellent. That's what I want. We're going to have to talk later.
Let's do that.
For sure. And Theo?
Great. I'm Theo Prodromitis, and I am a Greek mom. I'm an entrepreneur, and I am the organizer of our family reunions. I'm also an author and an executive coach, and I have a marketing agency. So I do a little bit of everything, and when I came in, Joy asked me what I did, and I was like, what day is it? What do I do? But it's more about who I am, so I can't wait today to share a little bit of insight and hopefully inspire people to be really vulnerable.
I love that. Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Our subject today is imposter syndrome. I just think it's so interesting, imposter syndrome. And Theo, you're the one who came with some research today. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that is?
Well, imposter syndrome, as my research revealed, really started out as an imposter phenomenon. And it was two researchers, women, that were looking towards traits of female leaders, actually, and that came up with imposter phenomenon, because a syndrome would imply that it had a medical basis. And I think we're going to get a little bit more into the fact that a lot of us that feel it are afraid to actually own it. And then when you do own it, sometimes I think LaFern is going to talk about hiding behind it or not unpacking it and really identifying with imposter syndrome in the broad sense. So it is a set of feelings that you're unworthy or unqualified to be in the room.
God, and I feel like we as women do that we do it all the time. And Joy, you owning your own business, and we talked a little bit before we started, your business in particular has really changed and evolved over the years, especially with social media. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I started, I was in my early 20s. And that's when, Instagram didn't really exist when I first started. And then it kind of happened like pre my first year. And so everybody was getting on Instagram. And at first it was like, oh, that's dumb. Like a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to do that. But in the group I was in, it was kind of like, no, we need to get in on the new thing. So we used to post all the time, and at the time that was, a fun thing to do. You just kind of post behind the scenes or whatever you're working on. And now it's become more of like a strategy where it's every business is there. I mean, you know what your neighbors are doing, you know what everybody's doing, and you really have to stand out. And as an artist, you work really hard on creating a product that's unique to you and unique to your brand. And when you put it out in the internet like that, it gets attention, but if it doesn't get the attention that you feel you put into it, that you feel you deserve, or you see a competitor getting, more attention, you think that means you're not good enough, even though you may have been doing it longer. You may feel that you have more experience, but it's really interesting to see the the, I guess, expansion of social media and how that affects it as well, because that's something that everybody at this point has to deal with.
Yeah, I would think social media is the king of imposter syndrome. I mean, my gosh, we're all trying to pretend, right, to be something and better. And oh, yeah, I mean, to me, social media just feeds that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see that actually a lot in my clients when I do, branding, or if I do headshots or portraits, and unfortunately, women, behind the camera, they're saying a lot of negative things about themselves, and I don't know if they really realize that, but they say it, and I hear it, and I think, I don't want to hear you say something bad about yourself. These photos are about you and about, making you beautiful and making you look great in your brand, and they're so afraid of what everyone else is going to think before they even get the photos, It's like they're already saying, like, oh, I shouldn't have looked like that because somebody, and It's interesting because I don't, honestly, I can't say I know exactly what it was like before social media, but I definitely see after social media, and my degree's in sociology, so this is like a whole, for me, this is like empirical research, but I see after social media how people view themselves even harder because anybody in the world could see you, So, so yeah, I see a lot of different facets of it in my career.
So as someone who teaches excellence and how to, what are your thoughts on this?
When I think about imposter syndrome, very similar to any other label that I hear assigned to behaviors, I'm inclined, especially when we're working with leaders who use a lot of labels in their language, I'm inclined to say, you know what, rather than put this blanket cover over who someone is, let's deconstruct it and talk about what imposter syndrome, the way we talk about it, really is comprised of. At its root is doubt. Mm-hmm. And so am I doubtful and that's reflected in fear? Am I doubtful and it's reflected in shame? Or does it make me anxious? Or do I begin doubting and start comparing myself? Comparison is poison to progress. Or am I simply questioning whether or not there's something else I need and someone else I need to get that support from? Or am I afraid to let someone know there's something I don't know? And how will they view me if they find out that I don't know everything? When in essence, we don't know everything. We know a fraction of what we think we know. And so it's really about getting to the heart of what are the thoughts, the behaviors, the drivers that when we say imposter syndrome, what is it that we're really talking about? And I think it's critically important when we're having conversations, because if I say imposter syndrome and you say it and each of us have our expression of it, it's going to be something different. So I challenge the leaders, the spaces that I'm working in, I challenge them, get down to the words, tell me what it really is, and then we can work on that.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you then? You came in with the research that you saw and kind of the history of the term.
Yeah, but for me personally,
yeah.
I have also had the great benefit to work with diverse leaders and organizations, and I think what it means to me is the root of doubt, and it is a basic human trait that we have and that we all share. So it can be negative, but it can also be something that brings us together. Because when somebody is vulnerable and they have doubt, then they're more likable, they're more relatable. So to me, it is getting to that doubt, then looking, whether it's personally or professionally, is how do you act because of it? Like, do you not show up for things, or do you just don't ask questions, or how does that behavior impact your life? And a critical point in doing some research was that really interesting is that one of the reasons women suffer from imposter phenomenon more than men, they determined, was because we have more roles. So men, somebody doesn't come into your house and the man of the house, whether it's, whatever kind of family structure, doesn't say, oh, I'm sorry, the house is not clean. Women are playing multiple roles, so they're apologizing for things that they don't need to apologize for. But it's that doubt. I'm being judged at work. I'm being judged in the car line. I'm being judged at the, here, there, at the gym. And that creates more of that doubt.
doubt seems to be the underlining thing. But don't we, I mean, we all, I know that I try not to doubt myself. You know, we try to come into, whether it's work or personal, as, okay, I've got this, I'm going to succeed. But we all have doubt. And a lot of times I know that there's ghosting or gaslighting, not ghosting, gaslighting. Gaslighting is supposedly when someone they start creating a narrative where you start doubting yourself. And that's just basically their way of trying to almost like trick you into, oh yeah, actually this is either your fault or you're making this up. And it kind of feeds into that because we just naturally can have doubt. We're probably gonna go there. And I like that you mentioned that we do have all these roles. So in looking at that, how do we move forward? How do we not have, is it even possible that anybody could just never have any of that? Never have doubt? Just think, I love we are definitely going to talk after this because I want to learn how to be so confident that, I can go in and be like, I'm the shit at what I do.
Right. Well, and that's the difference. It's the difference between excellence and perfection. Mm-hmm. That if I have it mostly right and it's really good, that's excellent. But if I'm waiting for all of the pieces to line up perfectly, and that causes me to delay and to question and to think about what's going to go wrong, that's when we start getting into a space of it never happening, and we doubt that it can happen. I always use the example of Apple. Apple will roll out its next phone with bugs, period. Mm-hmm. And folks will stand in line and wait for that phone, or stand online and wait for that phone and pay top dollar for something that is not perfect and will never be perfect. And they will never promise you that it's perfect. But it is an excellent product. Mm-hmm. And they don't apologize for that. And I think part of it is just changing perspective. What can I do with what I have? Or even what can I say I don't know about in spaces where people deserve to hear it? Mm-hmm. Not everybody deserves the right to understand and know my doubt. But in places where people deserve to hear it, what can I ask for that will free me versus staying in a prison of this doubt, which then starts to permeate my being, and then I show up feeling like I'm this imposter. And that's the difference. In organizations, we often see it when we're looking for fit. Fit says, here's who you need to be, versus belonging, which we are hearing a lot of conversations around these days, which says, show up how you are. We will respect, appreciate, and value you. And people who show up in a place feeling like they belong, whether it's in a collective of women business owners or in a corporate C-suite, when you feel like you belong and I can show up how I am, then it diminishes the doubt. How do we start? Choices. We get to make personal choices about how we think, getting people around us who will help us think differently, speak differently about how we even see ourselves, and then asking for what we need in those spaces where we don't know everything and we're going to have to rely on other people. But that's bold for some folks.
It is, because just thinking about, if you're a business owner, how do you do that? Yeah. Okay, so that sounds amazing, but how do you do that?
Ask. Find the one person. So maybe I say, Theo, guess what? I'm really trying to move into this space, and I'm nervous, and I'm trying to roll out this training to these leaders, and they are hammering me. And I know what I'm talking about, but maybe I just need to run it past you once. Mm-hmm. Can you help me understand what you see and give me your honest feedback? And at least I know if you've critiqued me honestly, then I can make the tweaks and I can go in and present something a little differently. When we don't ask, when we keep our mouths closed, we just close the door to the prison that keeps us feeling like the imposter. If it's one person, find that one person you can count on. For some of us, it's our colleagues, our peers. For some, we have mentors or coaches. For some, it's family members. But find somebody that you can release those feelings of anxiety and doubt with, and know that they're going to give you feedback from a place of love.
That's a really good advice. I really like that.
Yeah,
a lot.
Absolutely. I think it's the goal, again, for perfectionism is the goal is not to overcome imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome. The goal is to acknowledge it and to have a strategy that when it comes up, because it's going to come up no matter what. Michelle Obama reported that, in her book, she shared that she had that. How we all know, how could she actually experience that? Maya Angelou had said that when she released her 11th book, she said, oh no, maybe this is the time they're going to find out that I'm, a fake or something. And the most brilliant poet and human ever. And I think it's not to go for the goal of getting rid of it, but more so the coping skills to reach out or to have the self-talk and really just take an inventory of what you say to yourself in those times.
I mean, just the references that you just made to incredibly powerful, wonderful women that I'm pretty sure most other women look up to, for them to come out and say that. I mean, we all have a lot of it in us, but how would we help not just other business owners, our friends, our family? How do you think we can help them? Because we're going to have it. How do we overcome it?
I think, for me, I feel that something that people, especially younger people, should realize is that, yes, you're going to have it, but it changes over time. So, for my personal experience, I had it all the time when I first started. But now going forward, there's a lot of things I remember I used to be really nervous to do, and now I'm not. And it happens maybe, for a certain big event or a certain something I'm working on, like a big project. But it's not as hard to get through as it used to be because I have the coping mechanisms, I have the self-talk, I do all the things, and I can, I even say to myself sometimes to get myself through a big job because, it's, my business and I'm working in it. I literally say, Joy, you have to do this because no one else is going to do it for you. And that's literally, and then I can cry in the bathtub later, but I have to get through that job and do the best I can. And if I give 120%, no matter what happens in the end, I know I did give 120%. And I just, you look back, you critique it, and then you keep going and you learn from it. And something that, going off of what you said about Apple. So I got to tour the Facebook campus years ago when I have a friend that worked there. So I got to go to San Francisco. It's right outside, and tour the campus. And there was a poster on the wall that I took a picture of that I'll never forget. And it says, done is better than perfect.
That's right.
And that is another thing that's always been in my head is you can sit with a project, well, for me, a project, and wait till it's perfect to release it to the world. Or you can just understand that there's a point where you're going to be 90% done. And if it doesn't get out there, no one ever sees it. So you kind of just have to be okay with that and, fix it a little bit later, but get it out in the world, or else no one's ever going to know the amazing things that you do if you hide them away because you think that they're not good enough. So
we are so hard on ourselves. We really are. And we're starting with this particular podcast in this group. We're trying to talk a little bit more about mental health, and that's where this particular subject came from, because what we're talking about is mental health and how to navigate those, issues, and how to support each other and to have the right tools to be able to feel good about what we're doing. Because, whether it's at home or it's at work, we have to, at some point, we have to be okay with the product that we're giving or the life that we're leading. And sometimes that can be hard because we are so hard on ourselves and we compare ourselves to everything, because now more than ever, perfection is one click away. Mm-hmm. And whether it's even seeped into work. I mean, it's hard to navigate now that everything is on social media and everything is, you can achieve this perfection. Why haven't you done that already?
Or there are other people doing it. But in relation specifically to mental health, because if listeners are saying, oh, okay, great, yeah, everybody has imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon and everybody has doubt. But when it relates to that that fine line for mental health is, if any of the listeners are out there and they're struggling because their doubt is either causing them self-harm or preventing them from doing anything, that it is an absolute must that they open up to somebody somewhere, because the doubts that turn into the destructive behaviors are what we really want to reach out and build each other up about and say, you're not alone if you're letting. And it's not just that you're letting, because that would imply that it is your fault. But if the imposter syndrome is resulting in you limiting your potential or staying in bed and hiding or doing anything, that's the dark side of imposter syndrome, where it is now, consuming people. So if anybody is listening, definitely go, get with a friend or somebody who can get you a mental health counselor, because coming out of COVID, I think we should destigmatize everybody. It's like the equalizer.
Therapy is a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I really want to touch those people that are struggling or suffering, might be listening and saying, wow, well, everybody's doing things and they're talking about them at work. But what about the people? We don't want to leave them behind if they haven't been able to get out of bed, or they haven't been able to, take action on some of their dreams.
Yeah. We came out of a pandemic, a global pandemic. Yeah. Things have really changed, and it has taken a toll on a lot of people. I've said this before, I was tired of, literally, I felt like every day we're living through a major historical moment. I'm like, can we just be okay for a little while? And help is out there, resources are out there, but we need to talk about it more and make it okay for those who need the help, to give them a space and the resources to do so and get that help.
And then dispel this notion of perfection. Mm-hmm. It just does not exist anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think about social media, and you can use any filter, but one day you're going to have to show up outside.
Right.
And every piece of who you are is going to show up outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just getting to a place where we get comfortable with owning whoever we are, however we show up, whatever we can do differently and better. Because there's nothing wrong and everything right about wanting to improve. But it's not about comparing ourselves, which is a lot of what we see, or believing what we see. It's funny, years ago, pre all of the social media, I saw a photo of a lady, and she and I were going to do some business together. It was a very nice photo. And we were going to connect at a conference. And I walked past her because I didn't
she looked
recognize
nothing
her.
like it. Yeah.
And I said, she kind of looks familiar. Like I might have seen her somewhere before. But that photo was not her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say anything negative about how she showed up, but you want people to at least be able to recognize the essence of who you are, how you think, how you communicate, how you engage, what's important to you, what you value. You don't want to have to hide that or package it so perfectly that when the real you shows up, people don't know what they're getting or they're afraid. And I often, one of my girlfriends says to me, she said, my favorite color is red and I will wear it often. And she said, doesn't that feel bold? I was like, yeah, but when I show up in an organization and we engage, they're not going to get the silent, passive LaFern. She must have come preconception. Right. So I don't want to shock them when I show up, but having that support, having people we can engage with, talk to, share our real feelings with, it can be one person, and that's good enough if it releases you from the prison of imposter syndrome.
There was a trend on TikTok, because I'm not of the TikTok generation, but I do enjoy a good TikTok. And it's funny that you talk about the appearance and how different people look in person versus all the filters. There was that trend where there's a song and the beginning is, even if you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night. And then you see this, usually it's a woman and she doesn't have any makeup on and she's looking like, slightly, most of them are more on the we're looking rough side. And then when it says it cannot always be night, then it cuts and then there's a really awesome, this super sick beat. and they're just glammed up. Like some of it's glammed up to like drag queen status where it's just like, oh my God. And some of it is just literally filters and makeup. And it's like doesn't even look like the same person at all.
Right.
But they're showing that now. And it's so funny because they're showing it and proud of it. Like, yeah, look at how good I am at the filtering and the makeup. That was kind of the point, but you would never do that before. Because they have those celebrities without makeup pictures, which, by the way, most celebrities without makeup still look gorgeous.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, she looks so awful. Meanwhile, I'm like, I would kill to look like that with no makeup on. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah. So it's, oh, God.
It is. And, it's freeing, though. I was watching Oprah's interview with Viola Davis on her new book, Finding Me. And
it was a good interview.
A very good interview. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to hosting a book club, which I normally don't do, with a group of ladies. It's just that interesting and insightful. But I was a big How to Get Away with Murder fan. And the episode where she took the wig off
and the lashes, yes!
And then took all the makeup off, and she demanded that be how the scene played out. Because she saw it being so important that we could relate to stripping that makeup off and just getting down to who we are. So I appreciate that. A woman who didn't have to do it, being willing to do it for the benefit of all of us who are going to go home, pull the lashes off, and wipe the makeup off. Right.
I'm taking my fake hair out and the lashes off, but only in the privacy of my own home. Never taking a picture of it. No one's ever going to see it. But it's fine. Isn't it fun? We do that to ourselves. Like we don't have. I mean, we're so used to doing that it's raw and refreshing when we see someone else come out there and say, I'm not perfect. This is, I am going to have bad days. And there is that stigma of, we were just talking before about mental health days, and companies need to start to really recognize and make changes if they want to keep employees nowadays, because we are starting to really talk about mental health, starting to put it in the forefront, whereas you were never allowed to talk about any of that before.
Right.
So it is refreshing. We just have to make sure that we share the resources and we are supportive of one another, because a lot of times we like that people, sometimes women can be really nasty when it's, she's got some issues or she's not doing that great at work. We'll be talking about it over here. I mean, we do those things to ourselves. We have to stop that.
And we start it young.
Yeah.
As soon as you color outside of the lines, it's wrong. Is if the little girl isn't completely put together, we're putting her back together again. You don't want to look messy. And so not only do we have to examine the messages we give to ourselves, share with ourselves, but also those messages that we pass on to those young ladies and young girls who are coming after us about the freedom to not be perfectly and imperfectly put together.
Oh, that's so good.
I would venture to say that based on what Joy's expertise is about, the difference between what's on the external and what's on the internal, a lot of the work that I do has to do with women feeling that their credentials or that their skills are not up to par. So you just take away, and so you strip that away, the physical part, and now you look at what you're looking at is the beautiful exterior, but in the sense of how does it drive their behavior, that they won't go for something. There's a report on LinkedIn that women, when they're applying for jobs, will apply if they meet 90% of the criteria, and men if they meet like 50.
Right. Yeah, I've read that before.
Yeah, skills-wise, I think we need to build each other up and let each other know that it's okay to stretch, and that even though you hold space in this new, when you did one photo shoot for products, then do you put it on your website? Now are you a product photographer? And
I did.
Right.
Yep, I sure did.
Which you love.
And it grew. I mean, that's the thing, because I had that, and luckily I did have a great support system. I mean, that I completely agree with that, because I've been lucky to have a support system of professionals in my industry that I look up to, that look at me and I'm like, I don't know if I should be doing it. They're like, no, you got to do it. Do it. And they'll look at it. They'll tell me, like, critique a little bit. But then they're like, all right, now you got to put it out there. And I'm like, nope. And they're like, yeah, you're going to do it. And I'm like, all right. And it, it's hard and it's stressful, but I can say, like, it hasn't failed. It's been And I think over time it helps, because then if I have another crazy idea, because I do all the time, if I have another crazy idea, then I just kind of get through the anxiety and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. And if it fails, it fails. And I got to move on to the next thing. And that's, we talk about like, how women talk about themselves, but I've also read some books on, written by men who are entrepreneurs, just because I, kind of want to see what they're thinking. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of times they just put themselves out there and they're like, whatever. And I know society, for the most part, kind of doesn't condone them as much for that.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, all right, well, Oprah did it, so it's like, if you, even Kaylin, who, from AchieveHERS, and she's a great graphic designer that I know from Dunedin, and we've worked together before. And I told her, when she was starting, I said the same thing. And I was like, you really, you have your product and you're good at it and you want to do it and you have that passion, and you really have to just put it out there. Right. And it's not easy at all. But yeah, I mean, I literally did that.
And it's so worth it.
Oh yeah.
Because the flip side of it is when we don't do it and we see someone else who shot the one product and then said, I'm a product photographer, then we're like, well, I could have done that. Yeah. Well,
and you think they have all this experience.
Right. What would be different if you simply did it and not resent not doing it when someone else does it? Again, that comparative poison.
Not resent someone when they do it.
Exactly. The fact that somebody says, I'm going to do it, male or female, I'm going to do it and I'll put it out there and it's either going to work or not.
Exactly, yeah.
That's bold. But that's having confidence in self as well. And I probably have less patience for the blame and more compassion for ownership. What's the worst thing that can happen if you choose to not do what you want to do? You own that. We get to choose a whole lot in our lives. And when we get to a space where we own that a whole lot might be dictated, but we get to choose. Yeah. That's powerful.
It is. It's adulting.
Yeah.
We get to choose. We get to make those choices. And yeah, God, that's
I think it's also crucial to, one of the things that I get asked the most is where to get the support. So you had the group of photographers that you trusted, but there are people that maybe have seeds of greatness that maybe want to do pottery, or they maybe want to design T-shirts or whatever, or they want to start, submit their writing, but they don't even know step one. Where's my group? I'm at home, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they like to take that from Peter Thiel wrote a book From 0 to 1. So it's that first step. And I would encourage everybody to get an affinity group like Working Women of Tampa Bay, like AchieveHERS, anything that can be a group of diverse women. It doesn't just have to be women, but start somewhere, go show up, volunteer to do the reception desk, because that's the way you greet everybody. That's my little tip to people when they just don't know anybody, and just dive in.
And don't say you're sorry. Those people.
My gosh.
There's so many people that constantly say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Or I yes, okay, if I knock something over or I, knock into you or whatever, or I, knock something out of your hand, I'm sorry. But there's the people who are, that confidence is just, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, what are you sorry for? Like, what are you really sorry for? You're not really sorry. You're just saying, it's that knee-jerk reaction of, I'm sorry. It's that confidence, that doubt. Right. They don't have the confidence. They do have that doubt. It creeps in. And
it's hardwired. Well, it's, obviously the stats will show that 95% of what runs us is our subconscious. That is all programmed in there. And that's why a good mental health professional or counselor or even an executive coach, somebody can help you to overcome those voices, because they are the program. You're not good enough. You're not worthy enough. That's running like a computer program in the background, and you're trying to battle it with the 5% of your conscious brain. And sometimes you just need a little bit of help or some professional guidance.
And sometimes it's uncultured and conditioned. Yes. I look at organizations that say, we want excellence. We want people to bring their whole selves to work. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You don't want that.
No, you don't. Yep.
You want them to show up and be a fit. shape, mold, remold into who you need them to be, because that's what makes a whole lot of us more comfortable. And then when they show up, even the mindset, not even large organization. I'll go to small business. I launched my business 17 years ago, and I had a very small team. And over time, having been a corporate leader, understanding that I couldn't do it all by myself, I had to ask people, but this time my name's on it. And how many times have we heard, I'll do it. I can do it quicker myself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the whole mindset. I have the only way to get it done effectively. So I won't give someone else an opportunity to do it effectively, yet differently, because I need it done my way. And that's a prison that we live in.
Yeah.
So tell ourselves the truth. Even if it's me to self in the mirror, I don't want that. That's too way out there for me. Let me just do it myself this time, and maybe 6 months from now I might be ready. Tell yourself the truth, even if you're only speaking it to yourself, even if you journal it, even if you say it in the mirror. The last person to lie to yourself about what you're really thinking and feeling is you.
Ooh, you're just dropping truth bombs.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been amazing. God, I'm very honored to be with 3 incredibly strong female leaders. This is really, really great. We ask every guest what subject they would like to talk about or would like to hear discussed on this podcast, because it is supposed to be, unfiltered. Sometimes we're talking about things that make people uncomfortable, but we also want to bring awareness. And what is something that anybody can go first, a subject that maybe means a lot to you, a subject that you feel like we're not talking about enough, and you would like to have discussed on a podcast? Not everyone at once.
Well, for me personally, in being vulnerable is that in my close family, we've just experienced a young person committing suicide. So the ripple effect that it's had on all of us, and seeing everybody scrambling, trying to find mental health professionals. Everybody needs a different kind. There's no straight path. So I just think that it's the numbers are staggering, but the not only for getting people help, because I know that Sharon talks about that and suicide prevention, but on the side of the aftermath of these tons of people who are left trying to pick up the pieces and don't know where to get help.
We talked about that at our last one. And so suicide, I believe, is going to be our next subject, because I want to say almost every show someone's mentioned that. They've said mental health, and now that we're talking about mental health specifically, let's narrow into suicide, because I'm sure everyone here has had some experience or knew someone or has even felt those feelings themselves. So yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, and I think it can be a direct result of unbridled imposter syndrome. People that have been suffering for years. Obviously, there's other medical reasons, but that can be tied directly into our topic today.
Absolutely.
I think about the fact that we don't talk enough about what didn't work. We always talk about where we've been successful, what didn't work, and how that informed our journeys going forward. I've been doing a lot of writing and compiling information around what didn't work. We are slow to talk about our failures. And I was having a conversation with a colleague, and we were talking about young women, just happened to be young women. They're either one step removed or 2 steps removed from me, and how they are struggling with needing to feel like everything has to be so perfectly put together. And one of the young ladies mentioned to her mother that she'd never seen her struggle and never knew her to fail. Because as women, we often hide that, sometimes for understandable reasons, but we don't even talk about it in our families around failure, what didn't work. And I believe that when we begin having those conversations about what we didn't perfectly script or what we didn't master and how it left a scar, we begin showing through our behaviors that we really mean to break out of the prison of imposter syndrome.
That's a really good one. Wow.
I could fill a whole show of
Yeah.
what I've done wrong, what didn't work.
What hasn't worked? Well, should I talk about my ex-husband or yeah.
Or that hair color that I just got. What?
I love it.
Thank you. I've learned to say thank you.
You just say thank you. And what about you?
Well,
Bring us home, Joy.
I know. I'm thinking. You guys are so good. I'm like, ooh, I don't.
You're great.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, this is working.
You're
out
welcome.
It is.
So going off of what you said, I think maybe, so we talk about people's journeys and we're talking about imposter syndrome and maybe like diving really deep into, you know, you're talking about like what didn't work. Well, what things are working for you to actually be here? Like how many things are you, because like we were talking earlier and I mean, you have like 10 different hats you wear, you know, and it's interesting.
You're like, what day this week am I doing this?
But you don't, especially when you talk about social media, you see one thing, but you don't see the other 10 things people are doing to be in that one position. I mean, I know people who are running businesses and from the outside you would think like, oh man, they have a killer business. They're doing it. They're doing the thing. And then you find out they've got 5 other jobs just to do that thing, you know? And I think, you know, it's like, at what point did you feel like you were an expert? And what do you do that, like, what do you balance to stay here, you know, in this role? And then what keeps you moving forward? So it kind of goes off of imposter syndrome and then off of what you're talking about.
What was it? You like hit the nail on the head. I think it was Miss Rhymes, who she did the creator of like so many great shows.
Mm-hmm.
Shonda Rhimes. She spoke. I think it was like a commencement speech or something, and you know everyone of course is like, oh my God, you are so incredible. You're doing so many things. You must be just so, I mean, wow. And she said people a lot of times ask her, like, how do you do it? How do you do everything so amazing? And she says, well, yeah, it's absolutely incredible that I have, you know, Shondaland or whatever. You know, I mean, she's created this empire. She goes, but that day that I'm filming, you know, 10, 14 hours, an incredible scene, I'm missing, you know, soccer practice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'm failing as a mom that day. Mm-hmm. But the next day when I'm at the piano recital or, you know, I'm cooking dinner and we're hanging out, then I'm failing as a producer. Mm-hmm. And when she said that, I was just like, damn, this is someone who you like think she's got she's doing it all perfect. And no, she's admitting, she's like, no, I mean, it's give and take. Yeah. You know, so you talk about how does someone do it all? They do it all, but maybe one day they're doing one part of it not so great, and another part of it okay, and then the next day they are excelling. Mm-hmm. You know, absolutely like on top. But there is something that they're gonna and maybe it's that they didn't take care of themselves that day.
Yeah, there's the best book on this exact topic is written by somebody that is a mentor of mine. Her name's Randy Zuckerberg, and she has Zuckerberg Media, and she wrote a book called Pick 3. Mm-hmm. And she said you can have it all, just not all on the same day.
Yeah.
And it's a great book.
It's like a pie.
Yeah, there was a saying.
Yeah.
One of my yoga teachers used to say, she's actually a really good friend of mine, and she used to say, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And then going off of what LaFern said about choices, I mean, that's it. It's like a lot of people, you make choices every day, and sometimes it's the choice to put your business over making dinner, and it's a hard choice, especially, you know, as a woman, as a mom, you know, those are really hard things, and I think that all kind of, you know, circles back into where the imposter syndrome kind of stems from.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This was great. This was so amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And I cheers you all. I'm so lucky. I could sit here and talk about this forever.
I know.
I just thank you very much. And thank you, Second Soul Studios. And that's a wrap.
Second Soul Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.